Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to have you here. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We want to welcome everyone here. We're excited that you're here with us in this important webinar on the SAT prep and college admissions. My name is Dr. Bruce Neimeyer, and I'm the founder of Admissions Architect, where we help families navigate the college admissions process from SAT prep to applications, scholarship, and everything in between. Tonight, we're going to be covering why the new digital SAT requires a completely different prep approach, how your team can leverage their test scores to increase college acceptance and scholarship offers, and most importantly, how to strategically prepare for success. We'll also be unveiling an exclusive SAT prep offer, one that's normally only available to my private clients, but for this week only, we're going to make it available to non-clients as well. So be sure to stick with us till the end of this tonight's presentation to learn more about that. All right, so how to get the most out of this webinar. Before we dive into a few things, I want you to keep in mind a couple of things for this session that I think are going to make it valuable for you. First, remember to take notes. Megan and I are going to cover a lot of information, and having key points written down are going to help you implement what you learn, aside from, what we're talking about with our prep program as well. Second, participate. Drop in your comments in the question area or in the Q&A section. Please don't use chat, use the Q&A, and we'll have a live Q&A at the end where we'll answer as many questions as possible. Third, stay engaged. Feel free to use the reaction or put in your comments. The session is really designed to give you clarity on how the SAT fits into the bigger picture of college admissions. We're going to try and keep this between 30 and 45 minutes in length so that we have a good amount of time for Q&A at the end of this. And we're welcoming any questions about the topic we're talking about with SAT, as well as any other college admissions questions that you may have. All right, so let's get started. So let's just kick it off with a short introduction and welcome from Megan and I. Again, my name is Dr. Bruce Neimeyer, and I've spent 35 years guiding families through the complexities of college admissions. I actually have been on the inside of college admissions for many of those years, serving as the chief enrollment position at universities like Pitt, Rutgers, CUNY, Illinois, among others. And the reality is this process really has changed significantly over the years since I started out in it. And students who kind of approach it with a clear strategic plan are the ones who really see the best results. Joining me today is Megan, who's the Director of Student Success with our Prompt Launch Partners. Megan, would you like to say a few words of welcome?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Niemeyer. Again, my name is Megan, and I am the Director of Student Success with Prompt and Launch, and we offer solutions for students who are in their application process. And we are partnering with Dr. Niemeyer and Admissions Architect on the SAT prep course, which we're really excited to kind of explain more about today. And I'm really excited to be back in the Howard County area. I actually grew up in Howard County and attended Manor Woods Elementary School before moving away. So really glad to be back. And I also used to be a classroom teacher and taught at a couple of elementary schools in the area. So thank you all so much for having me.
Yeah, Megan and I talked about that a little bit earlier, so we're glad to have her virtually back into Howard County. All right, so tonight we're going to be covering four major topics. How the new digital SAT works is really not the same test as before, and prepping the old way just isn't going to work. Second, why test scores still matter, even in a test optional world. Next, the biggest mistakes parents and students make when preparing for the SAT. And then finally, talking a little bit about the customized program that we've designed specifically for the new test format and how you can take advantage of that offer. And also why we did this because, especially here in Howard County, constantly have been asked by clients and prospective clients about SAT prep options, which are kind of limited. And so, working with Megan and the prompt folks, we really think we've come up with something that is worth the investment and has the outcomes that I look for my personal clients. All right, so why SAT still matters. One of the biggest misconceptions I hear from parents is that SAT scores don't matter anymore because many schools are test optional. And that's not completely the whole truth and the point of having this conversation tonight. First, test optional does not mean test blind. Colleges still consider scores when they're submitted to them. Second, SAT scores directly impact some merit scholarships that are available, and many universities have automatic scholarship awards based on test scores. Third, a strong SAT score gives students a competitive edge with record numbers of students applying to colleges. And I know you're all out there hearing this. Test scores can really, in some cases, tip the scales in the favor of an applicant. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into these points in just a moment. But first, let's help you understand the new SAT so you can better assess how your team can prepare for it. All right, so the biggest changes that parents really need to know about is that the SAT has really undergone some of the biggest transformation in decades. And here's what you need to know about it because it is certainly different than the SAT I took, and I'm sure Megan took, and many of you as parents had taken. First, it's a fully digital format. Students will no longer take the SAT on paper. Everything is now done on a laptop or a tablet using the College Board's Blue Book app. There's no more bubbling in answers or flipping through pages. The test really is structured like a modern digital assessment with built-in tools like a highlighter or a calculator and annotation features. Second, it's a shorter test with two adaptive stages. The digital SAT is about an hour shorter than the old version, and now it's about 2 hours and 14 minutes in length. The test is divided into two main sections, a reading and writing and a math section. And each section is split into two stages or modules. Um, Third, it's adaptive testing. And so, what does that mean? Unlike a paper test where every student gets the same set of questions, the digital SAT is adaptive, meaning that the difficulty level changes based on the student's performance. How does this work? Well, the first module has a mix of easy, medium, and hard questions. And then based on how well the student performs, the second module will either be easier or harder. So if a student does really well in the first module, they will get a more challenging second module, which then also gives them a chance at a higher score. So if a student struggles, though, that second module is going to be slightly easier, but then the downside is that it's going to cap their overall score potential at the end. So why does this matter? Well, first, the first set of questions is critical because it determines which difficulty level the student gets in that second module. So students who understand how the adaptive system works can use smart test taking strategies to then improve their score. Fourth, there are fewer questions, right? There's more focus on critical thinking now. The old SAT had sort of long reading passages with multiple sections and more direct recall questions. The new digital SAT is shorter. There are single paragraph reading passages with one question per passage. Five, more real world evidence based questions are involved now. Math questions focus on problem solving rather than just memorization. Six is the built-in graphing calculator for the entire math section. So students can now use a calculator on every math question, and previously only some sections were calculator free. And then seven is the Desmos graphing calculator, which is built into the test software as well. Okay, now that we understand how the adaptive format of the SAT works, we need to talk about what this means for how your student should prepare. For years, students have been using traditional SAT prep methods, whether that was self-study or big group prep classes, or even outdated test prep books. I've seen some students sort of grabbing off the shelf just to kind of, fill their knowledge void, right? The problem with that, though, is that these methods really were designed for the old paper test and not this new digital format. So let me break this down into sort of three key reasons why old test prep strategies just don't work anymore and what students should do differently to succeed in achieving a better score for themselves. So the first reason is that these old strategies were built on that non-adaptive test that, I briefly mentioned, and not this new one, right? That old paper test gave students the, same set of questions. Students could skip around, they could flag questions or return to them later and strategize their way through that test. That really is no longer with that digital test now. Now, every question has to be answered in that order before moving forward. And so if a student struggles early, their second module will be easier, meaning that score ceiling is lower and there's no opportunity to go back. Students must work efficiently and make smart choices in real time. And that's why the SAT prep program that we've put together helps train students to approach the test strategically from the start so that they don't make early mistakes that limit their score potential. Number two, generic test prep classes don't teach students how to handle this adaptive testing. Many students sign up for these large, one size fits all SAT prep in-person classes thinking that they're going to get what they need. The reality, though, is these programs don't teach students how to handle that adaptive testing. Here's why these generic prep classes usually don't work, right? First, they teach content in a generic way without adjusting for each individual student's strengths and weaknesses. And that kind of is, one of my biggest problems with this. Being in a class of 30 students, your son or daughter is not really getting, that individualized attention on where they need help the most, right? Also, in these large group classes, they're also given static practice tests that don't really adapt to that real SAT, like I mentioned before, right? Each of these classes are random, right? Our repository is like 6,000 questions that can be randomly thrown at the students who are in our program, which mirrors what's going on in the test versus that static kind of test prep where it's not adaptive to the student at all. And also focus on memorization rather than these real world test taking strategies that I've mentioned before. To address this and to make parents' investment in the SAT prep worthwhile, that's why, we're here today also talking about the program we developed, right? Because it helps students by using AI-driven adaptive practice tests that adjust just like the real SAT. Um, our expert tutors work one-on-one with students to pinpoint that weaknesses that they have that early on in the process and then strengthen in problem areas, right? And that also is another reason why we've seen the positive results that we've gotten, right? Because we're focusing in on where the student needs help the most. We also build customized study plans so the students can get targeted practice and not just generic instruction. And then reason number three is that students need a different approach to time management and digital test taking. In the past, students had a physical test booklet and could underline keywords, they could circle answers, or even visually track their progress, right? On the digital SAT, everything is on a screen, and that creates new challenges. Students need to get comfortable with reading and processing information digitally. The test includes built-in tools that I mentioned earlier, like a calculator and the annotation and the flagging system. And that those things they really need to know how to use efficiently. Time management really is more important than ever. If a student gets stuck on a question, they really can't afford to waste too much time. So to address this, we train students on digital test taking skills, meaning how to use the on-screen tools for maximum efficiency. We also teach strategic time management techniques to help students move through questions at just the right pace. And we provide full-length practice tests to simulate that real digital SAT experience so there are no surprises on test day, right? So the final takeaway here is that the digital SAT is completely different test from that old paper version, and students need to completely take a different approach on how they prepare. These old strategies, skipping around, relying on generic prep courses, using outdated test materials, not going to work. It's just not going to happen for the student. Students who prepare with adaptive practice tests, strategic time management techniques, one-on-one coaching, that's where the greatest advantage is. And for me, where it's worth investing in doing this kind of a preparation for the SAT. And that's exactly why, we designed this type of SAT prep program to make sure that students are ready for that new format and not the old one. And if you're going to invest in this sort of assistance, that it's really at the appropriate level for you, for the student to realize some kind of return on that investment, for the parents, for the money you're putting into it, and for the students, for the time they're putting into it, right? And I wouldn't be offering it, and it wouldn't be if it wasn't something that I thought was really worth that investment. All right, now that we've covered why the SAT still matters and how the test has changed, let's talk about that real life impact of the strong SAT score. Like why you would want to even waste your time, doing any of this, right? Many families really think of the SAT as just a test that their student needs to check off their list, but it actually is a powerful tool that can directly impact college admissions, scholarship opportunities, and even future opportunities. So let's break this down into sort of three key areas where SAT scores can make a real difference. One is that an SAT score can equal more money, more scholarship money. So why does this matter? Well, one of the biggest misconceptions I hear from families is that SAT scores are only for the admissions process. But what you need to know is that as many colleges, a strong SAT score can lead to automatic merit scholarships worth thousands of dollars per year. For example, at some universities like Wisconsin campuses, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, in some private schools like Tulane, USC, and Duke, a 1400 plus SAT score could mean a $20,000 scholarship just for one test, right? So some schools even guarantee merit aid based on SAT scores, meaning if your teen reaches a certain score threshold, they're automatically going to receive a scholarship. So with test prep programs like ours, students are really preparing to strategically improve their score to open the door on more financial opportunities and advantages. Second is a high SAT score gives students a competitive advantage in college admission. Even at test optional schools, more so now than before, and I hate to say it, but the reality is that a strong SAT score can give students an edge. Many colleges still use test scores as part of their admissions process. And when two students have similar applications, the one with high SAT score often has an advantage. Even more importantly, colleges still use SAT scores for ranking, meaning they often prefer students who submit them. You'll see that as many colleges now will list themselves as test preferred. So a student with a 1400 SAT score, as an example, at a test optional school may stand out as a competitive applicant, even if the school doesn't require the SAT score, because this additional data point about the student can be that tipping factor that gets them in over a student who doesn't submit the score. Some elite schools like MIT, the Ivies, University of Miami recently announced, and also just the other week, Ohio State University have all actually reinstated SAT requirements because they found that it was still the best predictor of student success for their universities, like it or not, right? And so, just to keep those options open, this is something that I think is worth some effort for students. You also have states like Georgia, Florida, and Texas. All of the state schools in those states are required by law to collect the SAT for admissions purposes. So if you want to keep schools in those states on your radar as a possibility for admissions, then this is, a process that you kind of need to go through. When we work with students on their admissions process, we don't just focus on raising scores, though. We focus on strategically positioning students for admission success. So, depending on the schools that they've chosen to apply to, improving their score in the context of their other applicant data points can be an influencing factor. So, if so, we really will then work towards that goal and incorporate this SAT prep and process as a part of that overall perspective. Third, a strong SAT score can lead to special academic opportunities. So, beyond admissions and scholarships, high SAT scores can give students access to exclusive academic programs like honors colleges and research opportunities. Many universities use the SAT score to place students in honors programs, which often come with additional scholarship money. In fact, UMass Amherst, even though it's not required for admissions, it's kind of well known among IECs that, if a student that you're working with is applying to the honors college, you better have an SAT because we've seen across their outcomes that students submitting strong SAT scores get in, and those who don't and go test optional get into UMass, but don't get into the honors college. Also, it can offer priority registration, smaller class sizes, more prestigious academic tracks. Also, it can provide better admissions rate for competitive majors that may have limited seats. Those of you who consider the University of Maryland know about the limited enrollment program majors, and my experience shows me that submitting high SAT scores can be a competitive advantage to at least be considered for some of these very restrictive programs. So in some cases, students with higher SAT scores even get first access to internship programs as well. As an example, some honors colleges like Mizzou, Howard, University of Central Florida, and Michigan State give automatic acceptance to students with high enough SAT scores. And in those universities, this honors option often offers better research opportunities, academic resources to the students as a result. So again, when we're working with teens and their families, this is part of the discussion when approaching our SAT prep program. Because by maximizing these SAT scores, students just don't improve their admissions chances, but they can also unlock other opportunities that might not have had access to otherwise. And then that can make some of their choices even more attractive to consider when they have to make that final enrollment decision. Okay, so the takeaway here on this slide is that a high SAT score is not just about getting into college, it's about making college more affordable, maybe securing some better opportunities, and setting students up for success. Students who put the effort in to raise their SAT scores can gain more scholarship money, saving thousands on tuition. They can also get a competitive edge in college admissions and have access to exclusive academic programs, honors colleges, career opportunities. And that's why our SAT program is designed to help students not just pass the test, but truly maximize their results for this long-term success. With that, I'll give you a mic drop. All right. So now that we've covered how the digital SAT works and why traditional prep methods don't cut it anymore, let's talk about specific expert level test taking strategies that every student should be using and what we at Admissions Architect infuse into our program. So these are your note-taking takeaway things that you really want to concentrate on in tonight's presentation. Unlike the old SAT, where students could use these tricks that we've been talking about, like skipping around the test and returning to questions later, that digital SAT requires completely different approach to test taking, right? Students have to adapt to the adaptive testing, the digital tools, the tighter time constraints to maximize their scores. So let's go through the 5 most important strategies students need for the digital SAT and how we teach these strategies in our program. So the first is mastering the adaptive testing. Biggest mistake here that students make in approaching that digital SAT is to do it like a normal test. They don't realize that their performance in the first half of the sections determines their scoring potential for that second half. So since the SAT is adaptive, students must start out strong. If they struggle in their first module, their second module will be easier, but they'll also be blocked from achieving that high score that we've been talking about earlier. So what does this mean? Students must get comfortable with answering medium to hard questions early on, right? So, definitely working on those kinds of questions and not, saying that they're practicing and, practice on all the easy questions is not the path to do this, right? Got to do those harder questions. They need to have a balance between speed and accuracy. So rushing through and making careless mistakes in the first half can really lower their score potential. So that's another thing they kind of need to work on. Strategic answering is key. They need to make smart guesses when necessary, but focus on keeping their accuracy high. So our test prep program in trying to achieve this is that, we use an AI-powered adaptive practice test that works just like the real exam. So students get comfortable adjusting to these difficult questions. And in fact, I think we can say it, Megan, we use ACELY as our foundation, which is one of the most powerful adaptive test-taking infrastructures for students to simulate what that real test is going to look like, right? We also teach students how to pace themselves in the first module so that they don't accidentally limit their score potential in the long run. Okay? All right, strategy number 2, smart time management. Unlike that paper SAT, digital SAT, no skipping around, no going back, right? So in the past, students could flag those difficult questions, come back to them later. Now they really have to answer each question in order before moving on. And what does this mean? It means that they can't waste too much time on any single question because it could ruin their pacing. And they can't panic on hard questions early on because it's going to lower their confidence for the rest of the test. This time management, or, to do time management effectively, students really need to recognize a couple of things. They need to recognize when to move on quickly. If they can't solve a problem in 30 to 45 seconds, they need to make an educated guess and keep moving. Also, they need to know how to use elimination techniques. If they can rule out wrong answers, they increase their chances of guessing correctly. And then finally, keeping an eye on a digital timer, right? They won't have this physical test booklet anymore to kind of keep track of their pacing, right? This digital timer is the thing that they need to get comfortable using. So again, how does our program sort of satisfy that or work on these things? Well, we train our students on when to move and move on versus when to double check, right? We also help students learn to pace themselves under these kind of timed conditions. Third strategy, using digital tools effectively. The digital SAT, as I've mentioned, includes built-in tools, but most students really don't practice with them in advance. The test includes those things like the Desmos graphing calculator, which students really need to know how to use this efficiently before the test. Also, the annotation tool for marking up important information, a flagging system that lets students tag questions for review only within the module, though, keep that in mind. And since students no longer get a physical scratch paper booklet, they must adapt to using these tools strategically in their prep process. So how do we do that? Again, with our program, we teach students how to use the digital tools way before the test day so that they're not learning these things on the fly. We integrate the Desmos-based SAT math drills into the lessons, and we show students how to use the annotation tool to track key details efficiently. Strategy number 4, handling test anxiety. Test anxiety is real and it impacts even the highest performing students. My twins had it and they were pretty high performing kids, right? But when the test is timed, digital, adaptive, stress can really negatively affect a student's performance. So students really, in this case, need to know how to recognize when the anxiety is affecting their test taking. If their heart is racing, if they keep second guessing themselves, or if they freeze up on easy questions. They need to learn how to use breathing techniques and grounding techniques to sort of reset their focus when these things start creeping up on them. They need to develop a test day routine to keep stress low that include things like, good sleep routines, good nutrition, how to manage pre-test nerves. In our test program, we incorporate these things into it. And it's really our hope that the timing and pace, even of the program itself, helps to aid in reducing their overall stress. But it's important for students really to address all of these things as they go through their process. Last strategy, number 5 is the best study plan, or what is the timeline, right? Most students make one of two mistakes. They start prepping too late, and this leads to cramming, stress, and lower scores. Or they don't use any efficient study plan. They waste time reviewing materials they already know instead of focusing on where their weaknesses are. So the ideal test prep timeline, which you're going to see woven into what we've put together, is a preparation time frame of about 8 to 10 weeks before the test date. Also, to take an initial diagnostic test to see strengths and weaknesses, like where you need to improve as a student, right? And then to follow a very structured study plan that adapts over time. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Megan, and she's going to talk to you about what we put together for our test prep. Now, for those of you who are serious about getting your team fully prepared, we have that exclusive limited time offer of test prep. And I'm going to turn it over to Megan so that she can walk you through the components of that and talk a little bit more granularly about what this looks like.
Thanks so much, Dr. Neimeyer. So our exclusive SAT prep program for launch, which is partnering with Admissions Architect, is really developed with the goal of helping students master the new digital and adaptive method of the SAT. And we have developed our curriculum with a team of some of the best educators in the business to really help students hone in on the SAT domains, content domains for both math and reading and writing, so that students can feel really comfortable going through the entire content for the SAT week by week, while also still being able to customize the content based on the student's specific needs. So while all of the content is present in the course, you're able to speed up and slow down based off of your initial diagnostic results to really tailor the classes to what you are looking to do and which areas you need to bring that score up for. So with the program, we have 10 one-to-one tutoring sessions for each student, and it is in a similar adaptive digital format where the practice portal that we use to both take the diagnostic and that students are using in between their live sessions with their tutor is based on the Blue Book app where the students are going to be actually taking the exam on test day. So it has all of the same features, the Desmos calculator, basically mimicking the format that the adaptive test is going to be using on test day, which is really invaluable for students so that they're really practicing not only with an adaptive platform that is able to make those changes similarly to the way that the Blue Book platform is going to be making the changes, but also able to practice with those specific tools. We also are combining the wonderful power of the ACELY platform with our world-class tutors. We have tutors that are from all different walks of life, but their big kind of group is that they're educators, they're teachers who really love working with students and helping them to succeed and get the best possible score on the SATs and any sort of APs. So they really are working with students based off of those initial diagnostic results to tailor that content week over week and breaking down what they really need to focus on. Um, Throughout their 10 sessions, in between, they're going to have homework that's assigned and tailored to their specific needs so that they're covering all of the content domains. They are also going to be taking full-length practice tests and doing performance tracking the entire time. We're combining our ACELY platform with official Blue Book practice tests as well. So students will be doing questions that are from previous tests as the Blue Book app is releasing the previous year's assessments every year. And then our adaptive AI technology is also going to be creating questions that are similar, and you can use the adaptive technology to flag if there is a specific concept you're struggling with to get similar questions on various levels, easy, medium, and hard. So it really is a fantastic platform. You can use it as much as you want in between sessions as well to really just get that extra practice in. A lot of our students do more than what's assigned because they really want to make sure that they're hitting all of those content domains and feeling really comfortable with everything. We're also sprinkling in all kinds of the important testing strategies that Dr. Niemeyer so fantastically was sharing about in the program. So it is going to be reiterated throughout the course of the program. Things like helping students manage test anxiety, testing day tips and tricks about moving through the different sections, as well as process of elimination, the oldies but goodies that are going to be helpful from whenever you're taking any sort of test, but also new tips and tricks for the new adaptive nature of the digital SAT. So we're really excited to be partnering with Admissions Architect for this launch. We are going to be monitoring student process, both the team at Admissions Architect and the team at launch, and providing regular updates on student progress and scores as they go through and take their practice assessments. So it's really going to be a unique tool to help your student get what they are needing in that one-to-one format with a really fantastic tutor.
Great, thanks, Megan. So yeah, just to reiterate, right? So this is 10 one-on-one tutoring sessions, but we did get some requests from individuals that their students, or they feel their student might need more time. So we do have a 20 session version as well, and you'll see that if you decide to sign up for it, there is an option for a 20 session one at $2,500. And it also is the same thing, except you're meeting, 20 times and not just 10 times. So I guess it depends on your student and where they think they need maybe some extra help. But really, this 8 to 10 week period, 10 sessions for decent students have produced some really great results. This is the exact prep program that has helped students, see huge score increases. In fact, ACELY, our partner, has had 20,000 students use their software package alone, and their students are achieving upwards of a 200-point increase on their average SAT score, which is another reason why I sort of focused on this opportunity to bring this, to people that are in my neighborhoods, in my catchment area, and to my clients as well, because of that, the power of that impact. I think it's just valuably worth the time, effort, in the financing. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next step. Also, please, yes, put in questions in the Q&A. I see some popping in, and we'll get to those to the end, but just a reminder to put that in. Okay, so one more thing before we get to the Q&A. SAT prep really is just the beginning, right? My team at Admissions Architect also helps students find the right fit college. And I've sort of alluded to this, earlier. We also help students craft standout applications. And that's another thing that I, partner with with Launch and Prompt, where Megan is a whole system, really a great system. I call it TurboTax for writing your essays for college admissions, right? It's a fantastic mechanism that we use to break apart that essay process and help students really craft really outstanding essays and applications for admissions, and also to sort of maximize their scholarships, right? Many families who start with our SAT, and we also offer AP prep as well, where Megan and I are launching that this coming week. So if your student is in a school that maybe doesn't have a very good AP prep program, that's another thing that you can reach out to us about and talk to us about. But aside from SAT and AP prep, families will continue to work with us throughout the college application process because we really know how to position students for success. If you're looking for expert help beyond just test prep, we can also guide your family every step of the way. And as an extra special bonus for those of you who join us tonight, for those that are ninth and 10th grade families, I'm going to offer a 50% off our annual college prep package, which includes sort of 5 meetings throughout the year, and access to all the tools that I use and help students move towards becoming a stellar applicant in their junior and senior year. As long as you sign up for the SAT prep program, I'll discount that, part that I layer onto it with my advice and my help by taking 50% off that program. And this is where we work on preparing teens with all other strategic steps of preparation in their college search and application process. For juniors, I'm giving you an additional $500 discount off of my Master Builder or Master Builder Plus packages, and $250 off of my framework package if you sign up for the SAT prep program in addition to those packages within the next 5 days, right? If you're interested in those package deals, please email us at the email at the end of the presentation, all right? So let's go on and go ahead to the Q&A session. We're going to get some of these questions answered. All right. So the first one is, so when in school year, summer, do you recommend a student start this currently a sophomore year? Megan, do you want to answer that? Do you have some insight as to when you guys and your tutors feel is best to sort of jump into this work?
Sure. So we recommend getting started as a sophomore 4 to 8 weeks before your first testing attempt. However, we are in the process of adapting our curriculum to offer both full year options if we have students that are looking to take for potentially a full year, and a over the summer option. So kind of, if students want to use it as a summer prep course. As of right now, we do recommend 4 to 8 weeks before your first testing attempt. At the same time, we have students that have already taken multiple testing attempts that come to us and on average improve their score by upwards of 200 points. So we designed our course to really meet the students where they're at in terms of their previous experience. During the first session, the students have spend the first half of the first session as kind of a diagnostic where they're meeting with their tutors, they're discussing their past experience with the test, if they have any, if the student is coming straight from they're or is going to be going into their first attempt, that's totally fine as well. And we're able to tailor the course content for that specific student.
Right. Thanks, Megan. Um, Also, another question is, how do you handle if a child is struggling with a certain concept so that they get better at it rather than simply teaching to the test?
So this is a great question. I found that, when I was teaching in classroom, that it was always kind of a balancing act to make sure the students are getting everything that they need from our, lessons for the test, but also making sure that they're understanding the full concepts. So we designed our program to really encompass both the practice geared towards the specific test concepts, but we also have lessons for each of the domains that we do with the students as well. So to start each domain, the students will do what we call kind of a mini lesson to review the concept and go over several practice questions with the tutor before jumping into the full content domain, and working on the specific questions at the varying difficulties so that the teacher and the tutor is able to really diagnose if there are any knowledge gaps and really address that. The domains are also structured so that if a student is, for example, really strong in reading and writing, they can move through at their own pace. So some students will do two domains in a session so that they can spend entire sessions on one particular math domain that they're struggling with, or vice versa. A student can do several math domains in one session if they are feeling really comfortable and they're getting really great scores already on their diagnostic for that. And then they can break down and spend more time on the domains that they maybe had a kind of knowledge gap with.
Great. How similar is the current PSAT, which students took digitally this school year, to the new digital SAT? Megan, do you want to answer that,
You can go
or?
ahead.
Um, the,
Either way.
yeah, in fact, the PSAT actually was the first digitized test from the College Board, right? So that's where they sort of, practice their chops at this. And so it is similar. It's slightly different in length, I believe, right? And the scoring is different for it. But it mirrors the exact same experience, right? And it's the same content questions that are coming at the student as well. So as far as preparation for PSAT, and SAT, it's a very similar kind of process. Do you have anything to add to that, Megan, or you concur?
I do.
Okay,
I was just taking a note, but yes. So we also, if you are looking to take PSATs as well, when you are kind of building your students' study practice, our ACELY platform also has PSAT review as well. So that's something, the tests are similar but not the same. So it's always good to kind of explore all the different options.
thanks. Okay, and then if a student does not do as well as they had wanted to, do you purchase another round of prep course if needed for additional training? So what is your recommendation, Megan, for that kind of a situation?
So students can purchase additional sessions in groups of 10. A lot of times we do have students that, for various reasons, have knowledge gaps that they want to really take extra sessions to focus on. Another thing is that sometimes students might, especially with advanced math, want some extra sessions for subjects that maybe they haven't taken yet in school, depending on where they are in their kind of trajectory, because students are taking the SAT freshman, sophomore year, where they might not have had some of the advanced math. And if you want to take those additional sessions just to do an advanced math review or to kind of get additional practice with any of the domains, that is something that we can do in the groups of 10. And we also have the 20 session option as well.
And know that, just to cover that again, that through this program, and the reason that I love this program is that it's a team of people working with your student, right? It's, me from admissions architect, sort of watching the process and, communicating back with you as parents. Megan is, the student success manager or one of the student success managers that are sort of overseeing the process as well from the standpoint of the launch program, and working with the tutor who's working directly with your student. So that's why, again, when I say, like, I think this is a worthwhile investment, I see all these like one-off courses for $200, and maybe you go to like 5 sessions and that's now $1,000, and it's all very generic. Whereas, this program is 10 sessions with one of the best training software tools out there right now with a dedicated tutor focusing on your specific student and three people sort of overseeing that. Right? Right? So I'm like, boy, you really can't get a better scenario to that. So I just want you to know, like as parents too, it's sort of like a team effort here to try and advance your student. And for me, I would get feedback from Megan and the tutor to know how your student was doing and knowing if they were, if they really weren't ready for taking that test, right? Maybe they did need more time, because that's also a part of the strategy that I work on with my comprehensive clients, right, or my package clients is to kind of talk about that because sometimes you don't want a score to go in, right? Like if you're really not ready, you don't want to take that test, get an awful score, and then that appears to the students because some schools require you to send all of your scores, right? So, it's sort of a conversation, right? Instead of a student doing poorly and then having to go back at it, right? So just that's another tip of, why it's good to sort of have wraparound services. Um, is everything online, in person, or hybrid? Um, I can answer that. So it is all online, and it's like this, right? We use Zoom, for admissions architect to interact with the students. So it is a virtual tutoring session, but it is one-on-one. Even for my package clients, I do all of my work like that. I work with students across the globe, actually, international students as well as students in my own backyard. And I did virtual before virtual was cool. Like before the pandemic, I was virtual because I felt like, your son or daughter could really they just had to get home, right? And in front of the computer, and they could be in their comfy chair, in their comfy room, with all of their stuff around them. And a lot of it, what's great about the computer is that you can share this information, right? Like I can work with the student and the person simultaneously, right? So it is a really good advantage, and I think that that's the advantage you have with the tutors in this process as well, right? They can pull up ACELY, the tutor can work with that. I don't know if you want to talk to that technology interface a little bit more as it relates to the delivery of that, Megan.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a portal where students can log in and do their um, their sessions, and it is integrated. So if you're already an admissions architect student and you're using the platform like College Planner Pro, Maya Learning, you'll be able to log into all of your sessions through that. Um, by just the click of a button. So it's very easy. There's not a lot of new Zoom links every week or anything like that. It's all integrated in the platform. And the platforms are also compatible so that we can see your students' test results through the ACELY platform. Their tutor can monitor. We're able to monitor. So it's a, we're able to kind of track the entire process, which is very useful. And it's nice to have everything in one place. There's not a lot of paper that you're really messing around with, or there's the books that are outdated and you have to buy a new one every year. So it's great to really keep everything in one place and to have the student be in an environment that's similar to what they're going to experience on test day with the virtual platforms.
Mhm. Do you recommend students taking both SAT and ACT to see which they do better on after a prep course? Yeah, I mean, that is definitely something that I, talk to students about because the SAT and ACT are different, very different exams, and what they include. Just as a small example, sometimes ACT is a great test if you're thinking about maybe engineering or a science type of major because it has a science component to it. And then you actually get a science score that can be submitted to your institution for, but then again, it also depends on the school that you're applying to. Like some schools, they don't really care. Some schools, they would like to see that science score on top of just your science grades, your science classes. So it is a strategy. And again, it's a different test. The ACT is also changing though. It is going to a digital format. Um, and that's one of the reasons why, in some ways we're, a little hesitant with the ACT this year, just because it's in flux. Not that both the SAT and the ACT didn't have hiccups on their March exam, right? That with technology, that was not the best delivery on either of their parts. But what makes ACT a bit of a moving target, at least for this year, right? For these students, is that they are in a transition period, right? SAT has gone through their transition period last year, right? There were some funky things that went on last year with it too. It wasn't smooth sailing, let's just say. Uh, so that's the only reason, at least for this year, I'm a little more cautious with the ACT. ACT prep is not something that we're offering right now just because of the, unstableness of that. We don't want to, you know, put people through a prep thing. I mean, we do have a prep module. We're working on it. We're moving as quickly as we can as ACT moves, but it's a moving target, right? And so, like, we're not as confident with, that kind of match as we are with the SAT or our AP prep versus that. We feel like, we got that under control because the College Board has finished their movement with that. So yeah, but students can certainly take an SAT and ACT. If they bomb the ACT and do well on the SAT, nobody needs to know that they took the ACT. You just don't submit that score, right? Or vice versa, right? So there is a way that you can do that. Okay, so we are coming to the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But just as to remember, our limited time SAT prep offer is for $1,500, and it's only available for the next 5 days, and then it's going to increase to $2,000 unless you are going to become a private client of mine. Private clients, it's always $1,500 for the 10-week or the 10 session option. So if you're ready to get your teens started, at the end of our webinar, you'll be directed to a sign up page when we close the webinar, or I know this isn't something that people just want to jump on doing. You're also going to receive an email tomorrow with instructions on how to complete that online process. If for some reason you don't get those, you can either call me or the info email address that's on the presentation. You can take that and email me, and I'll be sure to get that. Just know that space is limited because we only have so many tutors, but if that sounds like something that is the right fit for you and this sounds like the right investment, especially if your son or daughter is gearing up for the June or May SAT, like this is the time to jump in because this is the 8 to 10 week pace, right? Leading up to that, right? So please feel free to reach out with any questions. Again, if you have other questions about the services that I offered, Admissions Architect, you can go to my website. You can sign up for a free consultation, and we can talk more individually on one-on-one basis about your specific student and their needs. And I'm happy to do that. That's free of charge, just so that we have an open conversation about that. All right, Megan, do you have anything for folks before we take off?
No, thank you all so much. And thank you so much, Dr. Niemeyer, for having me. It's been really great, and I'm so excited for the new launch of the collaboration.
Same here. Awesome. Great. Thanks. All right, everyone. Thanks for attending tonight. We appreciate you being here and look forward to receiving the webinar recording so you can listen to that again. Also, feel free to forward that to any of your friends who you think might be interested in this or our services. We always appreciate a shout out. And if they have it and they mention it, I'll honor the price for them as well, even though they didn't attend it. So you can go and be their hero and help them in their struggles and anxiety with the test taking process and college admissions. All right, everyone, have a wonderful night. Thank you for attending, and I look forward to hearing from you.